Bail blasting powder and family loyalty, cleaning up after the general. I can still feel the exact sense of weary recognition that settled over the Clampett household when the tank chapter finally began to close. Even as a child I understood that the grand military experiment had reached the same natural limit that had ended the castle and the greenwood before it. There was bail to post. There was blasting powder to explain. There was a tank that had to be returned before the authorities lost the last of their patience. And once again the family would gather the pieces with the same practical loyalty that had carried them through every previous storm. The series has always excelled at these quiet aftermaths, and the cleanup after Jethro's career as a tank commander remains one of the purest examples of that gift. The immediate practical problem is money. Mr. Drysdale is in custody. The amount required is specific and non-negotiable: $500 for bail and another $2,000 for what he owes. Jed receives the news with the calm acceptance of a man who has already written larger checks for stranger reasons. Buddy Ebsen plays the moment with the same steady grace he brought to the $10 million death duties in England. The fortune exists to protect the people who depend on it, and right now those people include a banker who has spent the better part of 2 weeks being absorbed into Jethro's successive fantasies. The check is written. The rescue is set in motion. Jethro's own accounting of the adventure is pure self-evaluation according to the logic he has always followed. The crew deserted him. The practice did not go as planned. He is ready to turn the tank in and get the truck back. Max Baer, Jr. delivers the report without self-pity, and without any apparent understanding of how thoroughly the episode has disrupted the ordinary workings of Griffith Park and the local authorities. He had a theory about preparation. He tested the theory with the best available equipment. The test has ended and he is ready for whatever comes next. The simplicity of the transition remains one of the character's great comic strengths. Miss Hathaway's emergence from the field marshal uniform carries its own quiet dignity. She has been ordered into costume, ordered into the tank, and ordered to participate in target practice with improvised ammunition. She has survived the experience with her essential character intact. Nancy Culp plays the return to civilian clothes and civilian authority with the dry precision that always made the secretary the necessary counterweight to every Clampett excess. She does not lecture. She simply resumes her post and begins the work of restoring what order can be restored. I have always loved how the series handles the lingering presence of the blasting powder and the rocks. The authorities are still trying to fit the events into recognizable categories. Reports of a tank loading mud and stones into its barrel and tamping them with a broomstick have already circulated through official channels. The explanation that the commander was practicing with the materials at hand does not fully satisfy institutional requirements, yet it is the only explanation the family has to offer. The gap between the official need for proper procedure and the Clampett preference for practical improvisation remains as wide as ever, and the show lets the gap stand without forcing a false resolution. Granny's parallel concerns keep the aftermath rooted in ordinary domestic reality. She is still focused on the fall festival at Silver Dollar City. The military adventure has threatened the travel schedule. The men streaming out of the hollows will not wait for the last of the Griffith Park paperwork to be completed. Irene Ryan plays the determination to keep the family's larger rhythms intact with the same energy she once brought to whitewashing an English castle. The tank may have torn up a few trails, but the festival will proceed on time if she has any say in the matter. Looking back, I realize that the cleanup sequence taught me something essential about the nature of family loyalty itself. The Clampetts do not abandon Jethro to the consequences of his imagination. They do not demand that he apologize for the tank, or the uniforms, or the disruption of the park. They simply appear with the necessary check, the necessary transportation, and the necessary patience to gather the pieces and move forward. The loyalty is not conditional on the success of the experiment, it is conditional only on the fact that he is theirs. Jed's quiet management of the final details remains the moral center of the aftermath. He arranges the bail. He listens to the reports from the rangers. He makes certain that Miss Hathaway is restored to her ordinary role and that Mr. Drysdale is restored to whatever dignity the experience has left him. Buddy Ebsen plays the coordination with the same unassuming authority he brought to every previous crisis. Nothing is allowed to remain broken that the family has the power to mend. The cultural texture of the late 1960s deepens the quiet grace of the cleanup. Institutions were under pressure. Authority was being questioned. The image of a mountain family calmly writing checks to extract their banker and their nephew from the consequences of a private military exercise carried a special charge of the unexpected. Yet the series never turns the moment into a statement about systems or rebellions. It remains a story about people who take care of their own, even when their own have spent the week converting a public park into a personal proving ground. As the tank is returned and the last of the official conversations are concluded, the foundation has been laid for the final movement of the larger arc. The family will turn its attention toward the hills and the festival. Jethro will carry the residual glow of his successive identities, Night Outlaw General, into whatever comes next, and the audience will be left with the lasting impression of a household that can absorb almost any amount of imaginative chaos without losing its essential center. I have returned to these bail and cleanup scenes more times than I can count, and every time I find myself smiling at the same details. The precise accounting of the 500 and the 2,000, the calm writing of the check, the matter-of-fact report that the crew deserted, the quiet restoration of Miss Hathaway to her ordinary clothes and ordinary authority. These moments have become part of my inner landscape, as familiar and as welcome as the sound of an old screen door closing after the last guest has been seen safely home. They remind me that the best comedy understands the difference between the adventures we allow and the loyalty that remains when the adventures end. Jethro was allowed the tank and the uniforms and the target practice. When the allowance reached its natural limit, the loyalty was still there, practical and complete, and ready to write the next check. The bail, the blasting powder, and the family loyalty are finally not about money or explosives, or even the recovery of a wayward banker. They are about a household that has never required its members to be sensible in order to remain loved. In the space between the chaos and the care, the series finds a comedy that is both raucous and deeply affectionate. I remain grateful for every practical check-writing piece, gathering minute of it,